Suhyun says, adds her marks to the papers, signed by Jamie, signed by Adrianna, and now, for what it's worth, signed by me. For the legal beagles out there. Most will see she has no collar and stands instead of kneels and take her word for it, is my guess.
Tina elbows Sue. You hear what Poppy said?
Jamie says, it would seem, Poppy, that you have proved yourself worthy.
Adrianna says, looks up and grins.
Tiny says, stand up please Poppy.
Adrianna says, worthy indeed.
Poppy says, she smiles at the white-haired Mistress Asterisk.
Corlink says, smiles broadly.
Poppy says, stand.
Tina starts to tear up but smiles.
Suhyun says, I heard. But I will still keep my signature on these forms.
Adrianna says. Asterisk holds out her hands to help Poppy up.
Tiny says, looks to Adrianna, please hold her hair away from her nexus.
Adrianna says. Asterisk pulls her hair away.
Poppy says, please, no, please.
Corlink says. Nods to Tiny still smiling. Adrianna says, this won't hurt a bit. Tina says, you can do it, Poppy. We are with you. Adrianna says, we are indeed, little sister.
Poppy says, shaking she looks at her no with terror in her eyes. Asterisk, please, me mistress, no.
Hargun waves to all.
Adrianna says, waves back.
Jamie says, Tal Hargoon.
Tiny says, he moves the pincers of the gigantic earth source bolt cutters around the metal ring of the collar, then skillfully pulls away from her neck so that there is a safe gap between the metal and her skin. He then quickly surges down on the handles with his powerful muscles, and assuming the steel is not Curry steel, the pincers cut through the collar like butter with a loud crack and they fall to the ground. Tal bro.
Hargun says, Tal everyone.
Poppy says, no.
Adrianna says, smiles.
Suhyun says, adds her marks to the papers and hands them back to Adrianna.
Tina says, tell Hargun. Looks at her brother with tears in her eyes. Corlink says, hi.
Talargun.
Tiny says, you are free of the collar Poppy. He puts away his bolt cutters.
Tina starts crying in earnest. I remember when I was freed, Poppy. Initially it is terrifying, but this will pass. Cute says touched. Tina says, Dagny was freed the same week as me. I think we turned out okay. Cute says touched.
Poppy says. She looks at the collar on the ground, bends down and picks it up. ND tries to replace around her neck, but it falls back to the ground. Slowly she looks the one that had looked after her for S long and then to Mistress Coralinx and says quietly asterisk, thank you both for keeping girls safe and loved. Jamie says. So Poppy, you can carry a full range of weapons. Speak freely and it does not stop you serving others if you feel it would be a nicey thing to do, but they can't order you.
Coralinx says, so happy for this. Tears well up. Sad face. Tina says, we all knew this day would come, Poppy. Lies.
Poppy says, girl, wish to thank all, free, what is freedom? I know I will still be a slave to Bokrusi. Jamie says, giggles, welcome to freedom.
Tiny says, it is worth it, I promise Poppy.
Suhyun says, bureaucracy? Nonsense. Shuffles Poppy's papers to make sure she signed the right places.
Tiny says, laughs.
Tina says, Poppy, repeat after me.
Jamie says, mind you, we are considered outlaws here, so can ignore bureaucracy.
Tina says, don't fuck with me.
Jamie says, giggles. Poppy says, looks at the white-haired panther and nods.
Tiny says, but she said that when she was a slave, I think Tina.
Adrianna says, giggles.
Poppy says, me say that. Never. Oh, I would to Adio.
Tiny says, to tell moons maybe.
Adrianna says, laughs. Cute says, touched. Tina giggles at Tiny. I think you're right, brother.
Tiny says, grins,